Hi everyone, this is a video response, a bit off the cuff video response to Pastor Jerry, who's made a video response to the video I made about him a couple of days ago. The first thing, I don't think I need to show you any clips of Pastor Jerry's response because it's quite I can just paraphrase the pertinent parts. The point Pastor Jerry made in his response, he made several points, but the important thing was he said, look, Jim, you've actually got me a little bit wrong. I know in that video I was maybe being a bit gloaty about going to heaven, but I am kind of quite pleased that I'm going to heaven and my lad's going to go to heaven. But I do spare some time thinking about other people and the fact that they're not going to heaven, and it does concern me. It is something I'm worried about. So I'm going to take that at face value, Pastor Jerry. I accept what you say there. But I am interested about it because you say to me that that's why you then try and bring people to Christ. You try and convert people to Christianity. That's part of your YouTube mission. And I kind of don't understand. It's like you're kind of prevaricating on this issue here because you seem to hold a position sometimes of predestination. And yet you seem to vacillate between this predestination and the fact that you can bring people to Christ. It doesn't really seem to make any sense. What I took your position to mean, and I awarded you the weakest position of predestination I could think of, which was that when we think we're choosing Christ, when we think we're becoming a Christian, that's actually just Christ working in our minds and bringing us to Christianity. That's what I took it to mean. But you seem to be saying more than that, that really, no, it's actually a little bit weaker than that still, that you can just bring me to Christ. Or are you saying that's Jesus working through you, working to me? I don't know, it all seems very, very complicated, doesn't it? But let's say it is Jesus working through you to work to me. That gives us a mechanism, doesn't it? That gives me a mechanism where I can become a Christian, which makes the whole idea seem a little bit less repugnant than if it's just Jesus saying I'm going to have him and have him. But what about something I mentioned in the sidebar, these isolated tribes, these uncontacted peoples of the world? In Brazil, there are 67 listed uncontacted peoples, tribes that have no contact with the outside world. Okay, if you look at New Guinea, there are 1,000 tribes in New Guinea with about over 860 different languages. 44 of these tribes are regarded as uncontacted. They have no contact with the outside world. They keep themselves totally to themselves. In India, there's a group called the Sentinelese. They live on the North Sentinel Island on the coast of India. And not only are they uncontacted, they are pretty much uncontactable. We have tried to contact them and all they do is fire arrows at us. They don't want anything to do with the outside world. It said on the internet when I looked them up, all they were prepared to accept was some red buckets that were left on the beach for them, which they took with quite some delight. I think it's quite clear that all these groups, right, there aren't going to be any Christians in there, aren't they? There's no Christians to make, you know, your lad is a Christian. He's part of the team, isn't he? He's one of Jesus' chosen ones. But I'm telling you that he's one of Jesus' chosen ones because you're one of Jesus' chosen ones. It's the fact that you're a Christian that's made him a Christian. But what about if he'd been born to the Sentinelese people? I suggest to you that Jesus wouldn't have chosen him if that was the case. Or if they would have chosen him, if your lad had been born to them, then what's that saying about the Sentinelese people, that they're so hideously evil that Jesus never ever chooses them? What about all these uncontacted tribes? Why are they never chosen? What have they done wrong? You know, how come they never get a chance? Jesus, whatever method he manages to get to people, he never seems to bother with them, does he? He's just quite happy to write them off. Yeah, they can burn in hell for all of eternity, for all I care. It doesn't seem very moral to me. I'm sure that doesn't seem very moral to you. How's that moral to Jesus? Maybe what it is that Jesus and God have a very different morality to us. But you know, I find that a very difficult idea because don't Christians say that we're made in God's image? But they say that's not literally. We don't mean that God's got arms and legs and eyes, ears and a nose and all this kind of stuff. No. What we mean a more sophisticated idea than that. So isn't morality tied in with that? Wouldn't our morality be his morality? You know, this is the kind of thing I'm interested in. And if our morality wasn't his morality, well then, how could we say what heaven was going to be like? Maybe heaven would be like hell, you know, because we wouldn't know what was moral and what was not. Which leads me on to this next point, the second point, which was that wouldn't it just be better if he hadn't created us at all? He's created all as human beings knowing that 95% of us are going to end up suffering for an infinite period of time. Yeah, maybe 5%, 10% of people throughout history will get to go to heaven and they'll have a really great time, a real good knees up there. But for everybody else, it's just going to be suffering and torment for an unimaginable period of time. How can that wouldn't be moral if I did that. I know it wouldn't be moral if you did that, Pastor Jerry. How can it be moral when God does it? And how can God regard that as moral? You know, maybe you'll come back to me and say, well, God's a bit different to us. You know, it is moral for him to do that. For obviously, for some reason, it is moral for him to do that. Well, if it's moral for him to make all these people go to hell, to make these Sentinelese people go to hell who've done nothing wrong, you know, that it's not their fault they've never that they've never stumbled across Christianity, is it? If that's moral for him to do that, then it would be moral for him to actually make heaven somewhere, which would seem the very antithesis of heavenliness for us, wouldn't it? You know, we get into heaven expecting something really great, and he'd say, right, okay, welcome to heaven, here's the big sharp knives I'm going to start jabbing in your rib cage, and be like, whoa, that's not our idea of heaven. And he'd be like, well, it is mine. You know, how do you know that isn't going to be the case, given this idea that he's created us knowing that most of us are going to burn in hell, and that's moral? Doesn't really balance, does it? I'd be interested in your thoughts on that idea of would it just have been better if he just not created humans at all, and about these uncontacted people. What's Jesus got against them? What has Jesus got against these people? Thank you for your video, Pastor Jerry. I did mention about your facial expressions. I was just having a bit of fun. I did think that maybe you were putting it on a bit. If you're not putting it on a bit, well then I'm sorry. Okay? Take care. Peace be with you, in fact. Bye for now.